Do we need an ashram for our spiritual journey, or is it possible without? Hello, this is Chris speaking. Wake up with a video about ashrams, spiritual communities, monasteries, and any other form of renunciation from the normal world. Looking at the craziness of what's going on in the world right now, the question presents itself, at least to me, do we need an ashram? There are some famous ashrams in India and some also in other countries like Thailand and US and so on. Then there are monasteries, which is a bit more intense than an ashram. And then there are spiritual communities, something like Oroville. It's not an ashram, but it's also not the normal world. Shrama is Sanskrit for toil, or toll, or effort, or fatigue. So something that is very exhausting. Like the life we are usually leading now, it's very exhausting. You work, only to pay off your bills, to afford your rent, afford your food, afford your children going to school, afford your car and your petrol and so on. It's a hamster wheel. And to get out of this hamster wheel, out of this toil, out of this wage slavery, you need the opposite, which is called an ashram. An A in front of a word is always the opposite in Sanskrit, most of the time. Many great teachers came to the conclusion, like Mahatma Gandhi, for example, Meher Baba, Sri Aurobindo, Amma Amrita Nandamayi, the Sahaj Marg teachers, and so on. Many of them, Osho, for example, very, very famous example, they all had this idea that they needed an ashram. Gurdjieff also, Bennett, Sri Ramana Maharshi, Sai Baba, the list is endless. All of them thought, okay, it's much more intensive and much more effective if we group together and are not busy only with earning enough to pay our bills. Is Maslow correct and we need to be free from worries like shelter and food to be able to concentrate on spiritual work? Or is spiritual work also possible if you don't concentrate on it fully? Or do we need a complete renunciation, a complete retreat, like a monastery in the mountains, like in Tibet or Nepal or ancient China, the Taoist temples or Buddhist temples, or even in Europe, Christian monasteries? Do we need seclusion, or is it possible to just live a spiritual life in a normal city? Or do we have at least to live in the countryside? And what if you withdraw? If you renounce the world and it goes to hell in a handbasket because everyone else is just living the easy life with a fast route for self-destruction? Even in the movie The Matrix, we have an ashram. We have Zion, city of the awakened, liberated ones. So the idea of many is that you need a hybrid, something between an ashram and normal life, like Oroville. But while you're playing the sadhak or the sadhu in renunciation or in a monastery or in an ashram, trying out something new and being yourself and maybe save the world in a very different way, no one stops the other idiots from destroying the whole planet. Cutting down a large part of the rainforest or erecting a dictatorial surveillance state. Only in Neil Stephenson's Anthem, there's a possibility where he thinks of a society where science, religion, and spirituality merge into one, which makes the monasteries so powerful that the mundane governments don't bother them. I think I'm siding with Sri Aurobindo here that you shouldn't pull back out of life fully. Maybe when you're very old, but before that you should keep involved in matters of life and not let the most stupid people run the show, because that's what usually happens. All the most intelligent people withdraw into a monastery or ashram, then only the very stupid psychopaths remain to run the show. And sooner or later that will create problems for everyone. So I guess what we really need is people who are courageous enough to stay in society and involve themselves, and at the same time to have a retreat center or retreat centers that are not bound to a certain ideology or religion or spiritual sect or movement, but open to anyone and everyone. Like a friend of mine, for example, has founded near Hampi. And that's what we really need in Europe, in the US, North America, South America, Australia, Japan, you name it. Independent retreat centers where everyone can go to remind him or herself who she really is. That's what we need more of. And if one of them morphs into a spiritual community or ashram, fine, but it should still stay open for people who just want to hang their soul a bit. But the traditional main reason for starting an ashram is actually that you can achieve more working together, teamwork. We are human beings, and spiritual practice is the same as any other occupation. It's just more effective in collaboration. So it's not just a place to withdraw, it's a place to do a different kind of work, but not alone in your ivory tower, together with others. So we will discuss this further on the Facebook and the Patreon page. Thank you for joining Patreon. Thank you for subscribing and liking the videos or sharing them with your friends. And please let me know what you think. Do we need ashrams? Do we need retreat centers? And most of all, do you know any cool ones already? Okay, thank you for listening and see you soon.